Imagine this. You are a small kid, barely able to tell the world from upside down. You get whisked away into a royal palace, not as a prince or noble, but rather to serve in a position in life from which one could never show his face. Your face carries no title, no honor, no privilege. But your back, that carries something rather worse, the punishment due to another for misdeeds committed. Think of having the inconvenience of taking on responsibility for something you never did. You never broke the vase. You never stole the coin. And yet, it doesn't matter. The prince, supposed to be the paragon of purity, gets off scot-free while you don't. And so the crack of the whip comes, not for the prince, but for you. That was not a nightmare, but it was the reality for many an innocent child in times past, children known as whipping boys. In Europe, especially in England, during the 16th and 17th centuries, there was something very odd and terrifying that took place. The whipping boy was its name, almost too unbelievable to be called true. Something like this: the very notion of a child having to be punished for the wrongdoings of another, the child having been previously made to suffer in silence, is already a grotesque twist on that so-called idea of justice. But it wasn't fiction, just the dark reality for so many children who had become chosen for that grim role. The whipping boy usually came from a lower class, mostly orphans or in the servant class within a well-off family. These children were brought into the palace to serve as playmates of the royal princes. They were supposed to be well-mannered, attend classes, and keep the young prince company, but they also carried a burden of great proportions. When the prince acted up or was inept in his studies, the whipping boy was the one who received the corporal punishment. Punishment not only corporal, but one which was psychologically devastating as well. Flogging was the commonest punishment for misbehavior, and the flogged boy, in the presence of the looking prince, would be subjected to lashes on his back, legs, and arms. Imagine the pain helplessness of the boy, a cracking whip across his skin, and there stands the idly by prince. The system sheltered the prince from the consequences of his actions. The only lesson he learned was that there was no need for personal accountability. Somebody else would always pay the price. Now put yourself in his place, if you would. The lash whistling through the air, across his back and searing, the burning humiliation, knowing this is your lot in life. You are not here due to some mistake. You are here to suffer for another man's mistakes. And with every lash, every crack of the whip, this makes it clear: you are not important. The prince is. And here's the kicker that will make you doubt everything you thought you knew about power, justice, and human nature. The whipping boy system was punishment, all right, but it came out of a deeply corrupted sense of justice. It is very easy to look at the whipping boy as a victim, but deeper down, this practice was not just about punishing one child. It was not only a question of supporting the hierarchy, but also the very notion that some, from the rich to royalty, would be immune to the after effects of the action committed. They did not necessarily need to bear punishment for the wrongdoings committed. Somebody else, weaker and more helpless, would answer for their mistakes. But that is not even the most amazing part. It is in how this system enforced the mind of powerlessness. A prince was brought up understanding that his actions could be ignored. He learned to belittle the misery of others. And the boy? He had grown up to understand that the only good thing about him was to be expendable, to be used like a pawn in some sort of larger power and control game. In that regard, the whipping boy was not just a victim of the royal system. The boy became part of a toxic cycle. He was punished for others' mistakes, and this could further deepen his sense of powerlessness. All of it reduced the boy's identity to only being a tool of sustaining power and privilege for the ruling class. He had no future, no escape. He was alive only to serve the pleasure of the royals, not as a human being, but as an object that could be disposed of after use. The whipping boy system teaches us one thing a little more salient regarding the nature of power, justice, and accountability. What the royals never really understood, or perhaps ever cared to understand, was that unless power was tempered by responsibility, then power is not really very powerful. True strength actually does not come from the ability to avoid consequences, but by facing them head-on. This particular system of the whipping boy not only taught the prince that he could get away with stuff, but it also inured in his psyche a complete indifference to the sufferings of others. It created an entire generation of royals who were completely and utterly clueless about what it is to face the music. But here's the thing. This system wasn't just harming that child who suffered the lashes, it was damaging to the prince too. It deprived him of his opportunity to mature, to learn sympathy and justice. The punished boy was really the true martyr, for his beating was to be some sort of lesson, and failed because it made both the prince and the punished boy lose their humanity. They became tools in the struggle for power, whereby nobody ever actually learned to take responsibility. Now I want you to stop and think for a moment. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone else was punished for your mistakes? Perhaps not to the extreme that was the whipping boy, but subtle forms do exist at work, at school, even in relationships. Do you take responsibility for your actions or shift the blame? And more importantly, if you ever felt like taking a fall for somebody else, how does it feel? How can you change that dynamic in your own life today? It's about time the cycle is broken. Don't let yourself, or anyone else for that matter, become the whipping boy in your world. Man up and own your actions. Let's go out there and create a world where real power means accountability. A world where we all go through with integrity the consequences of our actions, and where no one is ever allowed to take the rap for our mistakes. Thank you for watching. If you found this story disturbing, it is simply because it reflects a deeper truth about how societies function, and how even today we have to fight against systems that perpetuate injustice. Leave a comment below, share your thoughts on the whipping boy system, and reflect on how power must be used responsibly. If you haven't already, subscribe for more eye-opening stories from history. Don't let history repeat itself. Stand up, speak out, and hold yourself accountable.